So, Jesse, now that we're in the same room with someone as cool as Nia, this music doesn't sound as cool as I thought it was when I was preparing for the episode. I'm a little embarrassed by it now.
Does it make me uncool that I like it?
I like it too.
Yeah.
You do?
I
kind of thought it was kind of we were nerding out with this music a little bit.
No, this is a total groove.
Okay.
See?
Wow. Okay. Then I don't apologize. Either way, this is what I picked and we're going with it. And I just came clean. And it's by, okay, follow me. It's by FSM Team featuring Escape, but Escape is in brackets ESCP. So if you're looking it up, and it's called Lost in Sargam.
Sargam.
I looked that up. It means singing the notes instead of the words of a composition.
Nice choice, Drew.
I do want to also point out in my notes that Nia is capital N, capital I, capital A. I think that should be a thing. Like, I feel like with your presence, it demands it. But before we get into the news, I do have bigger news, which is Nia was named one of the 100 most influential Bostonians this year.
Oh my goodness.
From Boston Magazine.
This was like yesterday's news, right? This just happened?
Yes, this did. Well, thank you for having me, first of all.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But yeah, I guess that is some big news.
It's great news. Timing is perfect because by next week you'd be impossible to track down. But let's just name a few people that you're above on this list. I think that this is critical. First of all, I will say lots of women on the list, which we loved.
Excellent.
But you beat out some guys. Herb Chambers.
Hey.
Ernie Bach Jr. But most of all, you beat out Mr. Tom Brady.
Himself.
Granted, is no longer a resident. So I don't even know how I think it's obligatory to put him in the top 100.
He's not even a Boston. Where was he on the list?
100.
Oh, got it.
Just eked it out.
Yeah.
But Nia clobbered these guys. So congratulations.
Thank you.
You knew this was happening, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kept it a secret too. I mean, I work with you a little bit and you didn't mention it.
Well, yeah, it's so crazy. I didn't know. Truly, and then you don't know how you're going to place, and you don't know what it's for. It's just a name. They just.
But what about the picture?
Oh yeah, the picture's flat though.
But I know. When did they take that?
Well, that's funny. That was a picture taken by a great photographer, Emmanuel, last year.
For something else.
For something else.
Oh, that's tricky. They kind of sneak it in there.
Yeah.
For Boston Magazine, I assume.
And that one happened to be taken for Boston Magazine.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that.
So
photo.
they had it on file.
No,
right,
I
Drew?
actually sent it. I was able to choose my own photo.
Ooh.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering how all that went down. When do they call you and just say, hey, by the way, you're going to be on this list?
It's really kind of like that. They reached out to a team that I had worked with before, and then they let me know. That was it.
So like a month ago? I mean,
yeah,
recently.
about a month ago.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. And then are they like, you have to keep this quiet? You can't tell anybody.
Well, yeah, I think you're not supposed to. I just, I mean, I couldn't believe it. It's one of those things that I had to see it first.
Well, we're going to talk about why you're on that list, I think, coming up. But we are going to start with some news. And I brought this in because I wanted your opinions on this. This could be a moral and ethical news story. I'll read the headline. It's from Eater. Actually, most of the stuff I brought in was from Eater today because restaurant.com wasn't cutting it. The last few stories we had, we questioned
That's
their
your usual
accuracy.
go-to, right?
Yeah, well, this headline is North Hollywood Bar wants to turn into a members-only club for vaccinated people. So there's a restaurant in LA, and basically they want to provide a safe space for indoor drinking and revelry. And as the CDC greenlights more indoor socialization, it's a North Hollywood bar, and they've started promoting this members-only club called Risky Business that requires full vaccination to join. I leave it to you. Is this fair? Is it legal? What's going to happen?
Terrible name. Risky Business? I mean,
It's not so risky if you're vaccinated also. It should be risky business if they mix people.
Who's behind
Not
this? This
so
sounds
risky
terrible.
business.
It's located at the Other Door. It's a 10-year-old cocktail lounge and live music venue And they'll allow members to eat and drink indoors and even play games of pool without the need for mass or social distancing indoors.
All right.
And they'll have paid memberships.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's totally legal to do so, and I think that the restrictions in California look different than what's happening here in other places. So, I mean, I know that's a business sitting here trying to fight for its life, and it figured out this could be a way, and I'm pretty sure there's a market that's calling for it.
It's another pivot, and it got some news.
Sure did.
Right. Would you go? Would you become a member? I think it's like $20 to become a member. Would you guys do that?
I don't think I need to, but I know people who would.
I don't think I'd become I don't know.
Well,
what's the menu look like?
That's true.
Well,
right?
apparently with membership, you get access to certain like cocktails and stuff. But, it seems like ridiculous. But if you're uncomfortable going out to restaurants right now, that's a solution for somebody. They know that everybody's going to be vaccinated because there's not going to be any other way to prove when you go into an establishment that everyone's vaccinated. So it seems ridiculous, but I kind of see the validity in it. I don't know if I'd pay to become a member, but they'll check your IDs and look for your, vaccine.
You know what I think would be nice?
thing.
Nia, curious your take on this. There's all this talk about how we think about patrons and customers being vaccinated, but it'd be great to hear from restaurants in terms of what they're doing to take care of their staff, right? Yeah. Which I think, as a consumer, that's something I think a lot about. It's not the other folks showing up there, but like, how's this place taking care of their staff? Is their staff comfortable? Working in a restaurant, as you live it. I mean, you're taking care of a lot of people in there. So, I mean, that I'd be curious to understand that as well.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about it, one of the things when we think about the vaccine being present now, we definitely are encouraging our staff to get vaccinated should they choose to. But it's got to be a personal choice, and that's something that we debate with. But myself and other, kind of like peer ambassadors, we are on the front lines. I am fully vaccinated. I have other staff who are going in that same way, and it's really just encouraging that this is an added layer of protection. But outside of that, we're doing exactly what we've been doing for the last year. Mask up, maintaining our distance, making sure that we are following protocols and making sure our customers are following the protocols. And that's been one of the hardest things to do, is to make sure that customers are compliant with some of the restrictions.
I'm so glad to hear that those are your priorities, because a lot of times we hear, we scrub down surfaces and clean, but that ultimately didn't end up being as bad as we thought. So it really is about space, mask, and just being smart about things.
Correct.
And Jesse didn't know about this next news item that I have, but it is, as I like to say, serendipitous.
Did I know about the first one?
You didn't know about any of these.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you tell me. I don't think we did.
I don't think I did.
Well, this headline is from Eater. Hostility, harassment, and low wages are keeping many restaurant workers home. We've had discussions in the past few weeks with Jody Adams, a few other people, about why employees are leaving and why it's so hard to find people. And the crux of this article is that it's a hostile working environment. They're getting paid less because they're making less tips. I'm just summarizing this article. They're making less tips, and it's harder to work because now you're policing people who get mad at you. And this article really gets it right, I think. It also talks about if you speak up, you're going to get less of a tip because that person's going to be angry with you. So a lot of employees are sitting back and waiting. They're just in no hurry to get back to it. Have you experienced this?
Absolutely. I mean, the market is hard right now on all levels. Front of the house, back of the house, it's hard to hire, but especially on the front of the house. And we are experiencing that. We have to come in a lot of the times as management and even as ownership and say, yeah, I know you haven't been here in a while, and I thank you for coming out, and I thank you for your support, but I also have to ask you to go right now. And those are some of the hardest conversations that continue to have. Do
you encourage a server to get the management to step in when that's the case, or are they encouraged to also just say, hey, look, you got to leave?
We're sitting here finessing language, you know, from the start to the finish. And by the end of it, it's like, all right, bring one of us in. We've got a very tactful way to make this go.
Yeah.
Nia, have you dealt with customers who are resistant to wearing a mask? I assume the answer is yes, right?
Yes, and not a lot of them, and so I will be, very grateful for that because I've heard other stories that are terrible.
Yeah.
So not a lot, but yes, a few. Yeah.
This article is just I basically underlined the whole article because I thought it was so important. And by the way, they interview somebody from One Fair Wage. He's the president of One Fair Wage. But it says, because in most states they were tipped, workers were told their sub-minimum wage was too low to qualify for benefits. So they found when they went back to work, about 70% of workers reported that tips are down 50 to 75%. And that the health risks, harassment, and hostility and their responsibilities are way up. So they're being asked to do way too much for far less.
Tough equation.
It is.
Yeah.
60% of workers say they get tipped less when they try to enforce the rules. 73% of black workers say they get tipped less when they try to enforce these rules. And they also report that 41% of all workers have said that sexual harassment has gone up during the pandemic. And one of the examples they give is people ask women servers to pull their masks down so they can see their pretty face, things like that, comments like that. Just crazy what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, we're down at least 50% on our staff right now. We've been trying to hire for over 2 months. And what we talk about right now is the lack of experienced workers in the market. And then when you do even take the employees that have no skills and you try to train them up, it's just a detriment sometimes. You're working twice as hard.
Right. And do you find that service obviously must suffer? So do you still try and take all the reservations? I know somebody that didn't want to fill the restaurant because they were worried they couldn't handle it, and then service would suffer and then complaints would come in.
That's exactly where we are. We have modified hours on the fly because we knew we were not going to be able to meet our service standards. And for us, one bad day is we can't afford that either. So it's best that sometimes we have to bow out of certain situations. Absolutely.
I don't think a lot of people realize that when restaurants were allowed to serve again, they're not able to do full capacity now because of that.
Yep.
You know what is a little bit good news? Nia, I don't know if this has been your experience, or I'm actually certain it probably has been, and we'll get to this later, but the fact that Eater is talking as regularly about disparities in the workplace as related to race, as related to gender. This last year, I think even the media and the news, we wouldn't be reading articles 2 years ago about the way in which black workers versus white workers or females are treated. I mean, there were many publications that covered this, and this isn't news, but it does feel that there's much more willingness right now from the press and from outlets like Eater to surface these issues, which I think is, the data may not be encouraging, but it's somewhat encouraging that we're starting to have these conversations.
Absolutely. I mean, it's never been, to me, a taboo topic. We should have been talking about this as freely as we are. And the data is what we need to make some change, for sure. It's
so true. And not just issues of race, but also fair wage for everybody. I don't remember the conversation of how we pay front of house versus back of house being so much in the news. No one has a solution for it yet, and there are still laws in Massachusetts that screw up what could be some good solutions. And there are some groups like Big Dipper Hospitality that have started just tacking on fees because that's how you can start to distribute the wages. But nobody seems to have figured it out yet. But we're talking about it, which I think is good.
Well, the restaurant community has been talking about it for years, even pre-pandemic. It's just,
but it hasn't been in the press. People, I feel like, haven't been paying attention to it as much.
That's correct.
Yeah. And I think it's also because now you're starting to see these fees on your bills, and people are wondering why. So now you have to tell them, and the press is helping sort of get that word out. Do you guys have an administration fee?
We haven't had one.
Okay.
For us, we thought about it, we tussled with it, and we just said no, right? The least we could do, I don't know. We do not, but I understand the need for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you feel like eventually that's where it's going? I mean, in your mind? Between
the fees, or again, you have to look at your business structure. So whether that is, changing your costs, like you have to look at that as well. Something that we do tip sharing within our house though, but we just don't pass that cost on to the customer right now.
Okay.
So.
All right. Okay. I do want to get to this last bit because this is a pop quiz.
Oh, this is a new bit for you.
From news. So first we do news, then we do a pop quiz. This, of course, I'm going to butcher this as well because it's kind of complicated. But the National Restaurant Association has been interviewing 1,000 adults in these sort of sections of time, in 6 different sections of time for 6 weeks at a time, starting pre-pandemic all the way to spring of 2021.
So sample set was 1,000.
1,000, and then segments of 6 weeks between pre-pandemic and basically now. The intervals in between you don't need to worry about because we're getting to that. Now, there are 6 meals that they interviewed people about. Breakfast dine-in, breakfast takeout, lunch dine-in, lunch takeout, dinner dine-in, and dinner takeout. Of those categories, from pre-pandemic to now, which number has gone up? Only one of those categories, the number has gone up. First of all, did that make sense?
Yeah. No.
Okay, good.
So only one of those 6 categories have sales gone up?
Correct.
I would have to say dinner takeout. I mean,
Okay, all right. Nia says dinner takeout.
I would have to agree with Nia.
Well, let's start with dinner takeout. Dinner takeout.
Has to, right? Nia?
I feel
How
like
can
it,
it not?
but he's gonna tell us something.
Of course he's
different.
going to tell us we're wrong.
All right, wait, I think I screwed this up. Wait a second. I think it's both. I think there are 2 categories.
Remember how Drew said he can edit stuff out?
Okay,
This is that part.
I should have asked which was the most surprising. So yes, you're right. Dinner takeout is up 58% to 64%. Okay, but the one that surprised me that I've totally, this will be edited out maybe, I don't know, is that takeout lunch has gone up 38% to 48%.
Yeah.
Do you see that?
Yeah, and I can understand that. I mean, I remember there was a whole point in time that's all we did 5 days a week was made sure that we ordered lunch from a restaurant that we knew were closed. And then that just became a pattern or habit for us.
So for you, it's more like loyalty.
It was loyalty, but it was also, we talked about ways where if your office doesn't get together often enough,
Yeah.
and when you do, we're having lunch together.
Yeah,
or if
similar.
you're home, I'm going to send lunch to you too. So,
Interesting, yeah.
Well, there's no other option. You were either taking out lunch from a restaurant or you weren't getting lunch from a restaurant.
Yeah.
Well, but you would think with more people at home, and this is, I think, what was surprising for me, is that you'd be eating at home and you'd be cooking more lunches or making sandwiches. So to see those numbers go up, I was surprised by it. There's also a lot of great potential there to serve lunch when you might not have considered it as a restaurant. The data is showing that more people are looking for lunch to take out some lunch.
And the data here, just to remind us all, it's not from restaurants, it's from consumers.
1,000, yep, they
Yeah.
did a survey of 1,000 people, yeah. And by the way, of those adults, millennials went up the most. They went from 50% to 63% takeout for lunch. And all these things, Gen Z is always at the top. They're dining out and taking out all of these meals most.
Ritually.
And then the baby boomers are at the bottom. The group that screwed our country up the most, of course, is not contributing to the restaurant business whatsoever. Don't get me started on baby boomers. Anyway, all right. Well, I might have messed that one up. I'm throwing it aside. Let's talk about what you're up to. You are opening a restaurant.
Yes.
Did you time this so that you weren't doing it in the middle of a pandemic?
You know, I wish I could have timed it better, but
Especially for lunch, knowing that's, going up.
Exactly. It wasn't timed at all, in the general sense of when you start to set out for a plan. But I think it was actually perfect timing in general. I'd looked at this restaurant space a year or more ago, and I just kind of said, maybe this isn't for me. And then I had an opportunity to look back at this space at the request of the developer and the property owner.
Tell us who that is and what the space is, if you can.
It's a partnership with Northeastern University and American Campus Communities, who's a developer for the space. And the property is called Lightview, and it's 742 Columbus Avenue. And to me, among that partnership, one of the most awesome things is that it's 5 blocks away from Darryl's.
Oh, perfect. That's a walk.
It is. It's just a walk down the street. Yeah.
Wait, Nia, refresh our memory. You spoke to Dave about this a couple years ago, and then again, it was within the last year that he reengaged and this thing started to come together?
Literally last January, I was headed out of town. We stopped by, we looked at the space, came back, thought about it. And then we started hearing about coronavirus, and then we started a pandemic. And then,
So it was January 2020.
that was January 2020. Yep,
Wow, right before.
absolutely.
So maybe good, like you said, just kind of thinking about the way things timed out.
No, absolutely. And I would never thought that, 11 months later or 10 months later, we would be talking about this space again. And now, we're talking to you.
When you see a space, did you already have a concept in mind? What comes first for you?
I mean, you look at it, you think about the location, you think about the audience, and then you look at the aesthetics. And it's different than what I have right now. Mine is a brownstone with exposed brick, and it's really, intimate and kind of moody. This space, it's in the Light View building, and all I could see was light, it was so bright.
Not just a clever title.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Not just a clever title. And I just got inspired by it, and I knew that it would have some of the flavor of what we offer now, but I knew it was going to be different. It would have to be different. Yeah.
And what's the name?
It's called the Underground Café and Lounge.
Okay, very cool. See, cool. I told you.
I get it.
You should be reassured that the Gen Z and millennials are at the top of this list for dining in and out, because that's basically, I think that's going to be your primary market.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because it's going to be a little more cafe. You're in a housing unit basically for the school.
Absolutely. So. I mean, we have about 800 plus residents that are going to be upstairs. We're nestled again right in the community for Northeastern, as well as the neighborhood of Roxbury in the South End.
You're right across from
yeah.
You
look
say
at y'all.
Because to me, you're
Go, Drew.
Well, I don't know the names of the fields.
Yeah, I was gonna say right across from Ruggles,
Yep.
and then you've got that great new city of Boston park and field that was, I think it was funded by Northeastern.
Yep, it definitely was. Yep.
Darryl's you purchased. You
Correct.
bought from somebody else.
I did.
How does this experience compare to that experience?
When I bought Darryl's, I bought into everything. I bought the concept, the clientele, the branding, the feel of it.
Were you a frequent customer?
I was a frequent customer, but I also used to manage the business. So
Okay, all right.
prior to ownership, I served as a general manager for a few years. I separated from the company, and I decided that I wanted to have my own place. And just in a private conversation with the previous owner, he said, well, if you really are serious, why don't I sell you Darryl's? And so with that, it was so great. It's something I had always loved. I was a customer, like I said. Then I managed the business because I loved it. And owning it just was, it's an endearment to me. So, but with that, you take on the responsibility of kind of carrying on the legacy that had already been established. So with the Underground, this is my baby for real,
If you can screw it up or you can make it a success, it's all up to you.
That's it. There's no wings except for, myself at this point and the team. And that includes you as well and Brooke to make this happen. Yep.
Is there more pressure over one of those scenarios?
Yeah, I think the new concept that's not proven is always the riskier one, the one that gives you the most concern, and you can think about it and try to sell it all day before you launch, but you never know until you launch if all the goodness that you felt of it and the good reaction is really going to be paying off. So
it's just kind of a waiting game in a way.
It is a waiting game.
Yeah, you came into Darryl's, you just couldn't mess it up. Now you have to do everything.
Well, you can mess it up. You can mess it up.
Yeah.
Did you change anything when you got there? Or was it like, hey, look, this is
my
good?
point was the pressure coming to Darryl's was it was existing. Like the pressure on you was you just can't mess up this great.
Right.
The essence, the legacy, as you explained.
Yeah.
You're starting something totally from
See,
scratch.
I see it completely differently.
Yeah.
I see going into an institution like that, and the pressure of maintaining it is tremendous, I would think.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to mess it up.
Right.
And do you freely think about new ideas and new concepts? Like, how do you introduce these things to a very loyal base of customers? Are you able to make those changes?
Well, for me, one of my mantras is, if you take care of it, it'll take care of you. And so I think about, again, that legacy and what was established, and I figure out how do we improve upon it? How do we entice the next generation, because what our parents may have loved, there's some novelty and greatness there, and then what our next generation might love is a little bit different. And so I think that I have the true responsibility to kind of toe that line to make sure that the classics remain, but also stay inspired and stay attracting a new audience as well as bridging a gap.
What are some of those changes that you made to do that?
For me, it's a greater focus on hospitality and how we take care of the customer. And sometimes it's really just a matter of systems on how we do things, to provide a better service model. Even in this time of the pandemic and being able to change what we offered for takeout, it might have been a forced change, but it was one that we even had to examine, like, hey, were we sending takeout like this before, just when we weren't thinking about it? Like, we need better containers, we need better presentation, we need to give our customer the same experience at home. So, I mean, it's just things like that, really keying in on the things that really are great for the business, like the music. We've been, featuring local acts for
Live
more than
music.
a decade, live
music,
local music, for more than a decade. And, how do we improve upon that for the experience, both for the audience as well as the artists? And so, those are my focuses. And then how do we, affect other businesses and do more business? So,
And Nia, question, there was an owner in between you and Darryl, right? Did I get that? Am I getting this right?
So Darryl, there was Robert Morgan, Bob the chef, the original owner of the space.
Yeah.
Then Darryl, and then briefly there was, maybe two different owners who volleyed that back and turned that over within 2 years. Darryl's been the owner. He was the owner as of 2009 again.
Got it. So the transaction that you executed to purchase Darryl's was with Darryl.
Yes, Darryl sells.
Was that in 2009 when you took it over?
In 2018.
18. Oh,
Yep.
so very recently.
Right. So Darryl came back in 2009.
Oh, he came back.
He did. Yep.
I got you. It's funny because I have this fantasy, and it's mostly based on TV and movies, that like there are customers who are angry because you added something to the menu or you took something away. Does that really happen in real life?
Oh yeah, we get phone calls.
Really?
Absolutely. Absolutely. People who walk in and let you know how they're feeling, and it's okay. I love them.
Are you able to win them over? I mean, that's the fun of it, right? When you have somebody that's not happy, is to like make them leave happy.
Absolutely. For some of the things, they're remembering items on the menu again when it was called Bob the Chef.
Yeah, right. And you're like, you haven't had that in 20 years.
But let me tell you what you'll love today, and we usually get it.
Oh, that's so good.
It's amazing to be in a space that has that kind of history.
Yeah, it is. It's touching. Like, I love to get the stories of, I used to work for, or, I met someone else who was one of, Darryl's first cooks as well. Just to have that history and to be able to experience it on a daily basis is super great.
When it comes to change, the restaurant has been there a while. You've personally been there a little while, whether you were managing or not. You are in the South End. Do you consider it South End? It's sort of on the border.
It is. Roxbury's South End.
Yeah. But that neighborhood has experienced quite a bit of gentrification. What has that experience been like watching that change?
I'm from Roxbury. I grew up in Dorchester as well, and I've seen the change in the South End, and I knew when it was called Lower Roxbury, and that was all before it was, when it was used to be Roxbury, right? I think about Bob the Chef, who and Ma Dixon and Chicken Lane that were originally on Mass Ave across from Wally's, and that was all Black owned, so I think about that too. And so when we talk about, am I experiencing it, do I feel it, now? Yeah, it's a part of the legacy. And what my biggest challenge is, or, my charge is to make sure that people who remember those days don't feel displaced, at Darryl's now. We do have a very mixed audience, and I love that. I love that all people can appreciate the culture and what we bring to the table, and the experience, right? I love that piece, but I do sometimes get saddened about, how robust our culture used to be in that area. And so what I try to do on a daily basis, from the art that's on the walls to the staff that's employed to the people who are putting their hands in the food and cocktails that you're having and enjoying, is that, I try to make it reflect the neighborhood. So then, at the end of the day, that's not necessarily a black or white thing. It's who's in the neighborhood. I want everyone to feel comfortable. Yeah.
Well, Nia, you raised such a powerful point, and something we're trying to think a lot more about, and do think about in the context of our work, which is the impact gentrification has on small business communities. And so often in Boston, we talk about it in context with housing, but you think about the legacy of Black-owned businesses on that stretch of Massachusetts Avenue. And today, relative to what it was 30, 40 years ago, how many Black-owned businesses are there on Mass Ave in that neighborhood relative to where there were 30, 40 years ago? It's a small, small fraction.
No, I can tell you it's one, on a storefront on that avenue. And I can tell you that I know of a few that have some commercial space above. There's one on the Ave.
Which one is that?
Wally's Jazz Club and Cafe. That's literally it.
And they haven't been open. Are they back open?
And they have not been open for the entirety of the pandemic.
Yeah. They can't, right? They're not allowed.
Yep.
And you mentioned that your customer base sort of, accepting that there's a change in culture and color of people coming in. And in this press release, which I want to get into with your work, the Boston Black Hospitality Coalition, we'll get to sort of the creation of that. But since we talked about it, you mentioned in this press release that 75% of the customer base of the collective restaurants in the group, 75% are people of color. How do you adjust that number and balance things without doing exactly what you said, which is kind of alienating the people that were there from the beginning.
Yep.
I assume you want the number to be more balanced.
Yeah, I mean, what we want our numbers to be more balanced, but the reason why a piece of it is, our customer base is going to be reflective of where our businesses reside. And that's a different conversation. And we're talking about equity in space. And that's a fight that I'm, trying to be at the forefront of, where, our tourism spots, our epicenters don't have businesses of color. I can tell you that the Seaport is not reflective of all the neighborhoods of Boston, and nor is the, downtown or Faneuil Hall area. It's not. And so therefore, numbers could shift in terms of our customer base if we can also shift the area that we're able to do business as well. We can't necessarily get into those areas because rents are, unattainable for us on the commercial side. And so that even is a part of the struggle where I sit on this corner that is really just at the intersection of, it could be dicey, but for me, it's for others, it's really unattainable, the rent that I'm paying right now. And for me, if it went up a little bit, it might be unattainable for myself as well.
Right. It's that close.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it about more than just rent though?
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. I mean,
what are you thinking about, Jesse?
I think folks in our universe think that the way to get Black and brown owned businesses into their neighborhoods is just lower the rent. And there are far more barriers than just economic barriers of entry. I see some head nodding. Yeah. And, I think those are some of the conversations we're trying to have, because, we can do something about the rent, but I think shifting the way in which, for example, I'll speak very candidly, many of the white men that control the way in which money flows through our real estate ecosystem, helping them be a little bit more, changing the way that they think about what value is in the urban context, helping them understand and get past their own biases. That is work. That is hard work. And I think actually that the racism that still exists in commercial real estate is a far larger barrier than high rents. Hopefully I said that. I mean, I'm trying to...
Yeah, lowering rent's the easy part.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I'd have to agree. I think that a lot of the times is we don't have the access we're talking about as well. We're not in the same social networks, and to your point, because we don't have those credentials or references. Yeah, we're often. Yeah, I mean, we're not taken seriously at all in those circles.
We've been talking about the Boston Black Hospitality Coalition, which for me is for some reason a tongue twister. Tell us about that, how it became a thing, how it got started.
Yeah. Black Hospitality Coalition, we're here based in Boston.
It's a lot easier when you don't add the Boston in front of it.
You can drop the Boston.
Yeah, that's what's screwing me up.
The double B.
Yeah, I can't do it.
But co-founded by myself as well as 4 other restaurant owners. In fact, Savor Restaurant and Lounge, Eddie Furman down the street here, District 7 Tavern, Royal Smith, the Walcott and Poindexter family, Wally's Jazz Club, as well as Soleil Restaurant and Catering, Cheryl Straughter. We got to the table really hit with all the news of the pandemic and then the funding options and the things that were going on just in that time. And we were still trying to figure it out, a lot of us. And some of us had questions that either of us could answer, or we were having the same conversations in little different circles. And so it was at that moment that we were like, let's get together. Let's have a conversation together. Let's figure out how we can get through this and kind of move forward.
This was spring.
And this was
of 2020.
Exactly, spring of 2020.
Well, the press release is already May 5th, so you were obviously getting before that.
Yeah, so we started our work before then, and we was like, well, what do we need the most of? And at one point in time, it was really just the information and advocacy. Then some of us really needed banking relationships because we were struggling with the PPP access. And in other spaces, it was how do we even tackle considering rents right now. And I'm definitely having hard times with my landlords. And so we started out of the necessity that there was no one really speaking to us in our community to give us those direct answers, to kind of be our steward. We understood that the city and the state, were also in the middle of something that was fairly new for them, right? And that there were so many different subcommittees that have been identified to maybe work through some things, but like we were on the ground struggling. And
unlike other restaurants, being
Yeah.
a minority-owned business has its own set of challenges.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, we have our own challenges. And when I think about the other restaurants in the city who are interconnected, a lot of them are a part of restaurant groups or at least have
Right.
another member of the team. A lot of us are sole proprietors who,
Right.
in fact, were all in our infancy of ownership. I was just under 2 years, as well as District 7 and Soleil.
Right.
Yep.
Wow. And I know it's already hard getting loans and grants. You said that, whether or not you're a minority-owned business owner. When the pandemic hits, does it become even harder when everyone else is hanging on for life and grabbing for money? Is that what this is about?
Well, yeah. I mean, not only that, it then goes back to some of the same issues that we had prior to the pandemic. In 2018, you would know that the SBA gave less loans to African Americans and minorities who were applying for loans than they did over whites. That was happening before a pandemic. So right now, where we were usually over collateralized when we came to the table for this kind of traditional funding, we weren't even considered first. We were already risky before the pandemic.
You were already at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only over collateralized, but I think the data would show that the terms at which black-owned businesses were getting loans are far worse than the terms in which white-owned businesses were getting loans.
Correct.
So obviously this is all has to be going through your heads collectively. How do you begin? Like, where do you start?
You truthfully, I mean, you start by calling people out at the top, and you start to shake the tree and you see what falls from it. And that's it. And I think that's what we had to do. And from there, we were able to find allies who were doing more than just talking about it. And that's been getting us through.
Nia, did you experience more receptivity from white people post George Floyd's murder?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's that. And then there's the fact that I was still like enthralled in a neighborhood group that showed me quite different. And that was a very smaller population that really hit home to me. And they showed me the opposite, So on the wider perspective, yes, we got more reception, more people willing to listen and have a conversation and just consider a different perspective.
Oh, that's interesting. But your point was on the other side, there was more hostility.
Yeah, I mean, in my true, I could probably identify some of these neighbors on the street. And in that smaller circle, I saw more hostility and more anger and more just like disgustingness that I was just like, I can't actually believe I called myself a part of this neighborhood and try to contribute to this community. Yeah.
Wow. So it struck both ways.
In this press release, you challenge challenge city and state officials, public and private institutions, and individuals with the ability to make a difference to do their part to ensure our historic businesses and dedicated employees can weather this storm and serve our friends and families. Did people step up?
I'll tell you what worked well.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to name names.
What I will say, I think things like even the all-inclusive Boston campaign, let me say that, is very reflective of some of the advocacy and the work that we did and the people that we talked to and the folks that we pushed. I let it be very clear early on that it was sad to go to the Visit Boston webpage and then click on Roxbury, and they reference a destination in Dorchester that you should go to. And there was no mention of any kind of Roxbury destinations. So I made that very clear too. And I think that people listened to it. So I would say on that end, there was a larger audience who can affect the change, people on the chain. Mm-hmm. They made that happen. Specifically, I know that the Office of Economic Development, really, sat there and licensing as well, really sat there in the gap and really worked with us to kind of hand off things if we needed to, and really press things and make things happen for different license holders, be it fees that we were, as a coalition were able to pay for and allow licensing to help us get that done. So
what
we did
types
have some
of licensing are you referring to?
Oh, I'm talking about, alcohol fees at the end of a year where you never open, but your fees are still due for your liquor license.
So they were willing to work with you.
Yeah, they're willing to work with us. So we had some some help. Yeah.
Nia, we get asked this question, and it's the wrong question to ask Graffito 10 times out of 10, which is, it comes from friends, it comes from clients, and they're directing it at a bunch of white people who ask us, how can we better support, as white people, how can we better support Black-owned businesses? And, we're lucky to have you here today. What's your answer for how white people in the city of Boston can better support Black-owned businesses?
I think it's a matter of positioning, right? And allow us to get into the position to serve, right? We operate businesses because we like to do the business. And so if it's a matter of catering, consider a Black-owned business. And if it's a matter of design work, consider a Black-owned designer. That's it. Allow us to deliver the service. And if you don't like the service, that's fine. But, I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised. And that's just one simple way to consider it. When we think on a larger level and we think about contracting, and we know that contracting can be the lifeline for some. Last year, where restaurants were closed, some that had contracts with, different businesses or even BPS, they were able to survive because of that guaranteed pot of money that was coming in. So consider us when it comes to contracts well.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yep.
We keep going.
I've got the list,
We love lists.
Yeah.
I love numbers. I think Jesse loves lists.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I do love lists. It's upsetting that we have to be operating in a world right now where we have to open doors for Nia. That's kind of crazy, given how talented you are, and in your own right, like the skills you bring to the table and what you've done in your career. So it is this weird thing. And I feel, when people say, how can you leverage your white privilege? The fact that we even have to do that, it does feel awkward to me. It's upsetting. Because why should you need us?
Well, I definitely appreciate those comments, and I know exactly, how you feel. And let me tell you what, I'm equally upset.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we sit in that space, but what I have to, and you don't want the applause, and I know you don't need it, but it's these kind of conversations. It's that kind of personal checking, and it literally is this kind of, it's not even a hand up. It's just to open the door. It's just hold the door for me. I was already on that way. We might have been on that way together. I would hold it for you. Just hold the door open for me.
I saw in your press release from May, that there are only 8 Black-owned liquor licenses in the city of Boston.
Yep.
The sad and unfortunate legacy of the city of Boston when it comes to restaurant development and permitting and licensing is that it's a racist system. And that's simply just a result of the racist system of which we've been operating in for the last forever. So there are probably over 1,000 liquor licenses in the city.
Yeah, I think that was the number.
1,437.
Something like that.
8 liquor licenses that are held by Black-owned businesses. It's despicable. It's an embarrassing statistic for the city, but it doesn't surprise me.
Yep.
And before you commented on that, Nia, I think the reason it was in there was to say if we lose one of these businesses, we're down to 7, down to 6, which is even more unacceptable.
We're talking about less than 2% in terms of these spaces. And these are the third spaces that we all know, right, and love, right? So we're talking about our neighborhood watering holes and spaces that we gather and convene for celebrations and everything else. And you don't have those spaces within this city in your neighborhoods or in other pockets. It's, to me, what it says is that in a city where 53% of us are people of color, minorities, that we're only good for about 2% of the land and the space for us to really have a place that we can enjoy and cultivate that celebrates our culture. That's a lot of these places when we think about the restaurants that have been opened. It really is kind of ties into the food that might have been made when they were growing up or things that they might have been inspired in life. And we don't necessarily have those spaces. And so, we look at that number and we talk about if we lose one, it's going to be easier for us to lose more than one at that point in time, because where one of us is strong, it gives others strength. And so we couldn't afford to lose one.
I have to say, it's just such as a Bostonian, embarrassing and despicable statistic. I think it also speaks to the fact that liquor licenses are a product of a highly regulated system with a lot of public oversight. And by the way, 8 out of 1,400. It just speaks to the institutional racism in the system. And I think it also speaks to access of power when you look at the way in which there's a network of well-connected white men who control who gets these licenses, lawyers and consultants. And it's just, I don't think this is debatable. It's just the way it has been.
Yep.
It seems like it could be not easy, but there are ways we can establish, hey, look, if we're going to give out 20 licenses this year, 10 of them have to be to Black-owned business or minority-owned business. Can we do stuff like that?
Well, I think the city, Nia, you'll know more than I do about this, but I think the city of Boston in particular, in issuing pre-pandemic, I think they issued their first round. It was 75 no-value, non-transferable licenses.
I don't even know what that means.
They were putting out licenses into the community in certain designated areas of the city. And even that process of trying to push out no value, meaning essentially free licenses. You don't have to buy them.
And you can't sell it when you sell the business.
And that's the non-transferable part. Even that process failed pre-pandemic to get in the hands of entrepreneurs who truly needed them. It's just systemic failure.
Yeah. I mean, to get one of those, the easiest way to call it is a neighborhood license, because they're usually neighborhood designated. You first have to have that commercial lease in the space and the insurances, and we've got barrier.
And what
just
comes
to get
first?
The license.
I mean, you get the license because you can, but
you
don't
can't
have
get the license without the real estate.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, right. It doesn't work out.
Yep.
And you can't get the real estate without the financing. And oh, by the way, you can't get the real estate without a landlord giving you a look and giving you the opportunity that Nia was talking about with the contracting.
Yep.
Wow. We haven't invited, but we openly invite any mayoral candidates to come in, because we've been talking a lot about them this season. We call it a season because we're very fancy. But we have heard a lot about them because they're reaching out to restaurants, because they all seem to have a platform to help now that we've been through this, and we see the value of restaurants. Have you been in touch with any mayoral candidates, and what are some issues that you've discussed?
We talked to, I believe, the Barrows camp. And
do they approach you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was like, I think his camp as well as others, our concern is always going to be the space and the access. And so directly to what we're talking about, yes, you can always lower the rents, but after lowering the rent and I'm in the space, well, then I also need some of that, TI money. How can you help us with that portion of it? And I do need to build out a kitchen, but I don't know how to build out a kitchen. So do you have somebody that can work with us on that technical portion too, to get this kitchen built out? And so those are the things we're like, how do you find that kind of incubator program? Don't just send me through another accelerator, which I can appreciate on the business side of it. But when I'm telling you that I'm ready to take over a vacant space in my community that I watch be vacant for years, and you let me know that there's all these different barriers. I think that former city councilor Charles Yancey said it best. One of the best things that the city of Boston has to leverage is its real estate. And if real estate if you're not going to leverage that, then you're really not serious about making a change. Yeah.
Jesse, I'm having an idea here for Graffito.
Go.
Some sort of boot camp program for people to be able to come to us and start to figure that stuff out.
I like it.
Yeah, but I know the city has and this is the other thing, and I talk about this separately as another issue for my mayoral candidate, but the city has to realize that there are so many professionals in the city, yes, like a Graffito, that all you have to do is say, great, this is my partner on the project.
Right.
I got the real estate. Here's my partner. As long as you work with my partner, get it done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're going through some internal DEI training right now with great.
He says that so fast. DEI.
Sorry, thank you. Diversity,
I know,
equity,
but it's
inclusion.
like it's amazing how fast you say it.
With powerful pathways, and I think Alensa will come on later this season and talk about some of that work. But recently, she asked in a smaller group session, "What way are you at Graffito leveraging your own white privilege?" Right, and I think, Drew, to your point, this is one area where we can do that. It's right on, and I think, Nia, to your point as well. I mean, I think in our partnership with you on the branding side, on the leasing side, like, we can leverage our credibility and the fact that we can open doors for folks that unfortunately need that assistant in our real estate market in a way that I think hopefully can promote more equity in our small business community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we have our keynote speaker.
Yeah.
We'll do it once a month. Come on in, Nia. We are running out of time. Jesse, it's pretty awesome having Nia here. We've wanted you to come in. We had season 1 and I was like, we're not good enough yet. We gotta get Nia.
You're so silly.
No, I'm just kidding. For everybody on season 1, you were good enough. Trust me. But it is really great to have you here. We're finally meeting in person. Jesse, I started working with Nia over Zoom, which is a new thing where you just don't meet people.
I didn't realize you guys hadn't met before.
No.
No, I mean, we just started. We worked on branding for the Underground, which has been a lot of fun. Nia's an ideal client because she's like, it looks great. But
it does look great.
But also,
It really does.
But also, she came to the table with so many thoughts and mood board, and it was like, well, great, we're going to be off and running. So thanks for trusting us with it.
Absolutely.
We're really excited to see the Underground take shape. It's going to be a great experience for Lightview. The address again.
742 Columbus Avenue.
And when are you opening? Is that determined yet?
Look out for us in June.
Okay. June. We'll post about it. We'll definitely get the word out on Graffito's Instagram account. But yeah, thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
We can't-
Nia.
This
I
was
can't wait
awesome.
to be at Darryl's again. That'll be
Yeah.
nice.
Listen,
Just to be out in the world.
do either of you sing?
I mean, you've
With
heard
this
you've
microphone?
heard Jess.
No.
Well, you've heard Jesse's voice.
If I had this set up, I'd give it a try.
Okay.
Nia, do you sing?
A little bit, but
Oh,
not
boy.
today. But let me tell you, on a Friday or Saturday night, guys, we're going to sing together. You just let me know when it happens.
Well, you don't do like karaoke.
No. I don't do karaoke, but we're going to get something together.
We're just going to sing.
Yeah.
I've already found enough ways to embarrass myself in life.
Yeah. Nia, I'd like to sing with you.
Oh, see, thank you.
What would be your go-to song?
Maybe a little Frankie Beverly and Maze. I enjoy, you know.
I'm not are you kidding me. I was hoping she'd be like Duran Duran. That I got you covered.
Coldplay?
Right?
No, I wouldn't do Coldplay. Even I don't like Coldplay.
Started on music and we end on music.
Listen, what is it? I used to roll.
She does sing.
Yep, I love that song.
Are you talking
I can
about
enjoy
Rio?
that.
Is that Rio?
That is no,
that's Coldplay.
That's Coldplay.
Oh, fuck Coldplay. Really? I can't stand Coldplay. It's like all their songs are like anthems. It's
It
mind-numbing.
is.
The drums start and it's like, okay.
How can you not
like,
love that?
charge the football field again. Like I can't do that.
See, here we are. We had such a great moment to close this out, and now we're talking about
Shitting on Coldplay.
we're shitting on Coldplay.
Nia, thanks for coming for shitting on Coldplay.
Oh no!
All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
You just heard another mind-blowing episode of the Graffito Podcast. Big thanks to Nia Grace for joining us today. She's busy opening a new restaurant. She made the time to stop by and talk with us, and we are grateful. If you like what you heard today, let us know by emailing podcast@graffito.com. But you should also use this email address to send questions for the Graffito team. Who knows? We may even read your question on a future podcast. Follow us on Twitter @Graffito Podcast. It's the best way to get updates on the podcast in real time. Our work is keeping us busy, so we have to take a short break from the podcast for the next few weeks, but we'll pick up on season 2 as soon as possible. So stay tuned for updates. Thanks for listening. Goodbye for now.